What's going on, Imperials? Iron Fist is the latest in the line of Marvel television shows developed for Netflix. It's connected with the previous shows Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, and it's the last show to premiere before they all cross over in The Defenders. Iron Fist follows Danny Rand, who returns to his city after being presumed dead in order to use his newfound abilities to restore honor to his father's company and combat evil. If that sounds familiar, it's because Oliver Queen, Tony Stark, and Bruce Wayne all did the exact same thing. Seriously, this story has been told to us so many times that you can predict every move that will happen. This first season was almost a full recreation of the plot of the movie Batman Begins, and the entire premise for the show of Arrow, which did a much better job of it in its first 13 episodes. Telling a familiar story isn't the problem, because we obviously go to see the same stories all the time, but it's the way in which it's told. I'll admit that I knew very little about Iron Fist before watching the show. He just never seemed that interesting of a character to me, and after watching the show, I still kind of feel that way. I didn't really learn anything about the character that made me want to delve deeper into his universe. After seeing the Black Panther, I willingly did research on Wakanda to see what it was all about, but I felt no such desire to investigate Kunlun, and neither did the producers apparently, but more on that later. Danny as a character is not very compelling. A good word to describe him would be impulsive, frustratingly so. It seems like as soon as he gets what he wants, he's no longer interested. He becomes the Iron Fist, and once he gets the job, he complains that it's too boring. He clamors to become a part of his father's company again, and when he does, he immediately proceeds to blow it off at every turn. How are we supposed to get behind a guy that achieves his dreams one after the other, only to decide he's still unhappy about it? He didn't really seem like the kind of guy who I could see palling around with Luke Cage, even though I do hope they'll do a Heroes for Hire story down the line. I mentioned not being steeped in the lore of Iron Fist, so I don't know if all of these characters are prominent players in his story, but most of them come off as bland or erratic. I have a serious question. Are we supposed to like the Meacham family? I really can't tell. Joey is alright most of the time, but Horde is cringeworthy in almost every scene he's in. Everyone is so inconsistent in their behavior. As an example, Joy is skeptical of Danny's claims that he didn't die. Then she seems happy at the idea. Then commits him to a mental hospital. Then gets him out and invites him to join the company, only to be furious at him when he does. Nobody seems consistent from one episode to the next. They all keep shifting alliances without any rhyme or reason to let us know why we should get invested. Now there are some good characters, namely his friends. There's Colleen Wing, who I wouldn't have even known as a character if not for Avengers Alliance. Who else misses that game? Her story is fairly interesting, but does suffer a bit from having to be continually overshadowed by Danny. I don't know if the intention is for her to eventually join the Defenders or not, but I'd be all for it. And then of course there's Claire Temple, who has been in all three of the other shows to date, which makes it seem a little convenient that she just happens into Danny's life as well. There's also the lawyer Jerry Hogarth, who is another connecting character between the multiple shows. And I didn't really read anything about the show beforehand, so I was quite pleasantly surprised to see that Faramir was in this. Although, again, his character motivations are sporadic throughout, so I wish he had been given a little bit more to work with. The fight scenes in this show are varied in quality. There are some very entertaining ones, but there's a point where it just becomes repetitive, and you should never have to sit through a fight scene without enjoying it. Daredevil's fight scenes were visually breathtaking and engaging, and while the other shows didn't do as much hand-to-hand combat, they focused more on strong character interactions, both of which Iron Fist seems to lack. I'm fairly certain that every other Netflix show had a flashback or series of flashbacks to show how the heroes came to be, and the one show I was 100% confident would show us many flashbacks barely had any. We see the plane crash and initial rescue, but as for the actual city of Kunlun, or how he became the Iron Fist, also known as potentially the most interesting or unique aspects of the character, are left entirely to our imagination. Apparently, he becomes the Iron Fist by fighting a dragon. I'll give you one guess what we don't get to see the entire run of the show. That is a huge missed opportunity. That could have been one of the things that set this story apart from the others that came before it. All in all, Iron Fist doesn't seem to enjoy the same coherence that we've become accustomed to, or some might say have been spoiled by, with the other Marvel properties. And while Iron Fist doesn't quite deliver on the same level as the shows that came before it, it ultimately serves its purpose, with the intention almost entirely to set up all the final pieces for the Defenders to come out later this year, an aspect that may contribute to its variance in quality. Even though I liked the movie fine, many people say Iron Man 2 suffered from having to shoehorn in so many references and subplots to involve S.H.I.E.L.D. and set up Thor and Captain America and the Avengers. And to an extent, that's true. If you're forced into setting up someone else's story, you can't have as much time to pay off your own. I'm confident that Iron Fist's story can have a satisfying payoff with the rest of the heroes in the Defenders. I'm fine with this show simply being a final stepping stone to the crossover, and hopefully interacting with the Defenders will be able to lift up Iron Fist and make it stronger on its own in the future. Or it may be that Iron Fist is more like the Hulk, in that he has trouble carrying his own story but works really well in an ensemble. And despite everything, I would advise trying to watch it if you've enjoyed all the other Marvel shows to come out to date. And if you haven't seen any of those, what are you waiting for? Well, what did you think of Iron Fist? Do you think it lived up to the expectations set out before it? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. We'll see you around next time.